Not because you did it so much when you were younger and you were jaded, but because it never seemed that appealing to you and you were more relationship-minded? Story 1. Never been interested in a hookup or a fling. Some of my dating experiences were pretty short, like 3 or 4 months, but my intent has always been to look for a meaningful relationship. Story 2. I have 2 older brothers who got their girlfriends pregnant just as I was getting old enough to start dating. That's all I needed to see for birth control and avoiding getting stuck with the wrong woman. Story 3. I like people and building lasting connections with them. I've always felt that way, and the handful of times I've hooked up with someone in any capacity, it has just made it all the more clear why it is not my thing. Story 4. Not really into it. I prefer sex in relationships. I did a hookup once. My town isn't a big town, so seeing the random girl whose cheeks I clapped at the grocery store is always awkward. Story 5. I maintain a firm belief that this hookup culture isn't real, and it's just a few prolific individuals engaging with each other. And you can't convince me otherwise. Everyone hates the dating applications, men, women, and all those in between. Everyone also has the same complaints. It's a situation where people dislike the app environment and see these prolific individuals engaging with each other, calling it hookup culture. Story 6. I just can't see doing the nasty with a stranger that I don't care about. I did it once with a coworker I barely knew and felt nothing for her the next day. I quickly came to the realization that it wouldn't be that hard to just wait for the right girl. Story 7. I've never been into it. I had 2 girlfriends in high school, dated another in college, and married super young at 23. I do not envy you guys that have to deal with the dating scene. This seems absolutely ridiculous. Story 8. Me. That is poison to the brain. It ruins our understanding of healthy intimacy and offsets our ability to set proper and healthy boundaries. People might say, well, if there's lots of sexual chemistry there and the vibe is good, just go for it. I say no, that's some nonsense. Hookup culture is toxic. It teaches people to value intimacy less and teaches us that people and sex are disposable. Story 9. If by hookup, you mean having sex with a woman and never having any meaningful contact with her ever again, then I am definitely not into hooking up. Story 10. Not anymore, not for a long time. When I was 14 years old, I got into a relationship with a 23-year-old female teacher. That lasted for a year, and then I became what I call a teenage male promiscuous person. Hookups were constant, and I loved it most of the time. Between my sophomore and junior years of high school, I was with 30 to 40 different girls or women. I loved the sex, but I didn't like myself very much. The summer before my senior year, I met a new girl in my neighborhood, and I was smitten and stopped the hookups. Long story short, we were married and completely, happily monogamous for nearly 30 years before cancer took her from me. When I started dating this past January, after being alone and celibate for 5 years, the women I met and went on dates with were all about hooking up and not about relationships. As a man who had not had sex for a few years, I was happy to be friends with benefits. But again, it was fun, but it wasn't fulfilling my need for intimacy and mutual care. I'm now in a committed relationship and much happier. I think most humans are wired with a desire for a long-term, fulfilling relationship. Men who say they aren't or who prefer hooking up, I think are mostly lying or fooling themselves. But if they took the time to self-reflect, I think they would find the same thing I did. It's fun, but not fulfilling. Story 11. Never cared for it. In my opinion, the only reason you'd be a part of hookup culture is if you were desperate and didn't care about the people involved. It's solely about the sex, has no attachment at all, and honestly, from what I've seen, it makes it that much harder to form real connections with someone in the future. Sadly, that's the culture that seems to be prevailing today. I've seen numerous posts from both men and women who are disillusioned about dating as early as 20 because they can't find a partner that isn't into hookup culture. I typically don't respond to them because I don't want to be mean, but the truth is, they aren't going to find anyone other than people only interested in hookups. In today's world, that is like looking for a needle in a haystack the size of a house. Hookup culture is one of the many reasons I gave up on dating. Story 12. I was always long-term minded in general, so I never engaged in that kind of life or found myself in situations that would lead towards that environment. It became more and more normal, and I keep finding it more and more alienating. Maybe? I can't find a word for it. Story 13. I didn't care about it when I was younger. I am just out of a 12-year relationship and don't care about it now. I just want one woman to spend my life with. Story 14. I'm not. I was raped violently before I ever had the chance to have sex consensually. After that, I didn't want anyone touching me. I certainly don't want strangers I don't know touching me. More than that, I've dealt with a headache of a woman before who attached her self-worth to sex, and she made it a hellish experience for me. I only want people I truly love in a monogamous fashion to touch me. Story 15. I mean, I certainly was eager to be in my 20s, but just didn't meet the requirements to participate. However, I'm in my mid-30s now and seeing the aftermath, well, I kind of feel I dodged a bullet by not taking part in it. Not that I'm doing any better with the ladies now, but, it feels like there are fewer regrets and fewer worries to have when it comes to women. Story 16. I could have gotten into it since I was like 14 or 15, but even back then I sensed something suspicious, and it wasn't the girls. Now I just know how damaging it is to the soul to have casual sex, even for a guy. Story 17. Everyone around me just wanted to hook up. Most people sought temporary comfort and hid behind the veil of the idea of a relationship, so I followed along. Oh, it was not something I wanted to do though. Story 18. I am not at all. If I have sex with somebody I do not know well enough, I feel horrible inside. If I make out with somebody I do not like enough yet, I feel kinda empty. Story 19. I have never been into the hookup culture and never wanted to be. I have been with exactly one woman in my life, and that's my wife. That's by choice, not necessity, because I have had plenty of offers over the years. Story 20. I never was like that. I remained a virgin into my 20s by choice, only having sex with my first super serious girlfriend. I dated one other person after her before my wife, so 3 is my body count, as they say. But honestly, sometimes I seriously wish it was only one. My wife. Story 21. I did it once reluctantly. I never liked it because I truly believe that sex should be reserved for someone you love. It is the most vulnerable version of yourself, being as close to someone in their most vulnerable state as you can get. It is the penultimate display of trust, love, and selflessness. I've had sex before with girlfriends in the past, but it wasn't until at least 3 to 4 months in that I felt truly comfortable. Story 22. I'm not, but that being said, it was never really available to me outside of a single disastrous open relationship in my 20s. I would hypothesize that the majority of men are in my boat in that regard. Can you truly know you're not into hookup culture if it was never an option to you to begin with? Story 23. I absolutely cannot get on board with someone without having known them first. Simple as that. That alone has put a pretty hard stopper on anything related to hookup culture, so if it were to happen, it would be with people I already know. Story 24. I never had confidence in myself. We lived in a not-so-good economic condition, so I dedicated myself to studying. I never acquired soft skills for socializing. Additionally, living on a danger street, I rarely went out, which led me to focus only on studying and then working. As a result, I reached my 30s without any significant relationships. Yes, it's that sad. Story 25. Me, and no shade to anyone, but I'll never understand how doing something so intimate and vulnerable with strangers became the norm. The thought of kids and sexually transmitted diseases would be horrifying to me. Story 26. I don't have the time or energy, brother. After my 9 to 5, I just want to relax. Hooking up and things seem like a lot of effort. Effort I don't have. Story 27. I did that in my early 20s and it was cool, but it consumed so much of my energy constantly going after new prospects. Also, I got scared and thought I had gotten the wrong woman pregnant. My mid-20s were spent working on my business, career, and personal stuff like going to the gym and learning how to invest. Story 28. Had a long-term girlfriend in college. COVID-19 hit and we ended up splitting up. A few friends told me I should try out dating apps like Tinder to get over it easier. Got lucky a few times, but it made me feel pretty worthless, like I never really had emotional connections with any of the women I had been with, so the intimacy felt empty, if that makes sense. It made me realize I prefer emotional connections when I am intimate, so I am not always on edge. We got back together, and even though we do not really have intimacy, everything else is amazing, and I feel fulfilled, unlike when I was casually dating and messing around when single. Story 29. We're just using sex to replace the love and affection we never got as children, but it just feels dirty without a connection to the other person. We don't know how to form connections, so we watch a lot of pornography. Story 30. I'm not into hookup culture because I have respect for myself, and I do not believe that contradictions exist. It is only proper to sleep with one person, the person who you will be with for life. Mistakes happen along the way. That too is life. But I aim for success while avoiding mistakes. Any other path is immoral. I believe it, and that's enough for me. Story 31. Never was. I always wanted to find love and didn't care too much about sex. Hookup culture to me seemed like an unfulfilling and possibly emotionally damaging trap, although it doesn't always have to be. Now I'm a very happily, recently married man, and I'm glad I never had an ounce of interest in hookups. I don't feel like I missed out on anything. Story 32. I am 38 and I was only sexually active with 4 women. Each one I was engaged to. I was never one who liked the idea of simply hooking up. I wanted a relationship. I wanted marriage. I wasn't going around screwing. It never appealed to me. I had plenty of chances, but that's not what I wanted. Story 33. Never liked it. First-time sex is always awkward as anything. Doing that repeatedly was never a desire of mine. Plus, I find the reasoning and rationalization people make for sleeping around very unattractive. My logic has always been to find someone you want to be with so much that you'll still be intimate with them even after they've spent 40 days and 40 nights stranded in the desert. Story 34. I was in a very long-term relationship and did basically no dating between that and finding my now fiancé. I think maybe if I had been a single guy in college, things would be different, but by the time I was finally single, I was so accustomed to monogamy that the idea of hooking up with complete strangers just felt wrong to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just really like the trust and bond that you develop with a partner rather than just the physical. Honestly, it wasn't even until I knew I was in love with my now fiancé that I really started enjoying the intimacy. I just really prefer that connection. Story 35. Me, it seems rather strange and unappealing to me. For a long time, I genuinely thought that the idea of having sex with someone just a while after meeting them, even on the same night, was just an American movie trope, not something people actually did. I was surprised to read that it actually happens. Story 36. Right here. I've had a few opportunities to pursue that, and as it got closer, I felt this massive hollow feeling inside me. I learned at an early age that hookups would make me feel empty and not fulfilled. Story 37. Yup. Never enjoyed it. Frankly, having sex once with one person feels performative. There isn't trust or accommodation. It takes a few times to get to know what works and build up trust. Story 38. I've always been sexually attracted to most women, so if that's what you're asking, then yes. However, that is only one part of the equation when it comes to actually wanting sex. To actually want sex with someone, I need to believe that they also want sex with me and that following through won't psychologically harm either of us, in addition to finding them sexually attractive. On top of that, I have always valued platonic friendship as well, and am not inclined to pursue sex in scenarios where it would jeopardize a platonic relationship I already enjoy with the person. For these reasons, I have never expressed sexual attraction to anyone that didn't first express having such thoughts about me despite being sexually attracted to a ton of people. All this said, my partner being monogamous is not actually important to me, and there are lots of people I would be happy to have sex with if I didn't feel like anyone would be hurt by it. So, in some ways, I very much fit into the hookup-obsessed guy stereotype, while in other ways that doesn't fit at all. Story 39. No man truly is, and neither are they polyamorous, but they convince themselves when their significant other wants to do it, even if it hurts them. See Anthony Bourdain. Story 40. I took a 1-year personal vow of celibacy because I felt dirty and burnt out while participating in it. I took that time to learn new things and focus on work. That period ended a few months ago, and now I'm in a great spot financially, at work, and have found a girl that I really like. I'm taking things slow, but it's going really well. Story 41. I've always been more interested in a relationship than casual sex, exacerbated by me being kind of shy, so I was never good at chatting up women. Plus, I was married before Tinder, so I avoided the current dating environment. I was lucky to meet the one at 21, married 4 years later, and that's that for me. Story 42. Using someone purely for sex, that is, objectifying each other to the bare bones of lust, turns me off. It genuinely makes me look at someone like they're a sociopath when they enable and indulge in the behavior. It wouldn't be bad if they were obvious like players and promiscuous individuals, but those who pretend they don't do it are dangerous for long-lasting relationships if you're not like that yourself. Both promiscuous individuals and sociopathic equivalent men are some of the worst backstabbing people you'll ever have the displeasure to meet. Story 43 here. For me, sex is a very emotionally driven act. People who treat dating as a hobby for me are a real turnoff because that doesn't strike me as the kind of person that wants to settle in and start a family.